questions are for Mr. Behan. Firstly, Mr. Behan, would you simply confirm the policy position of your organisation as per your website, where it indicates that your association is in favour of, we won't use the word advocate, we don't want to upset anybody, your organisation is in favour of the availability of abortion in all circumstances?
The question isn't relevant to what we're discussing, Senator, in the context of the government decision.
Chairperson, with respect,
okay.
I would think it's very relevant.
Okay.
If an organisation is presenting here,
okay.
and if their stated policy of that organisation on its public website page is that it favours abortion, the availability of abortion in all circumstances, I would just like that to be confirmed on the record. Now, my second question, Chairperson, for Mr. Behan, and I'm reading the presentation. I appreciate that you didn't get perhaps to read all of the presentation, but in point number 24 of your presentation, you talk about the need for progress, the need for legislation, etc., before the next tragic case arises. Now, we have heard here today from a wide variety of groups and organisations and witnesses who have all put on the record of this House that, to the very best of their knowledge, there have been no maternal deaths arising from our current legislation and our current constitutional position. So could you let me know, please, what tragic cases are you referring to? Because you refer to before the next tragic case. And finally, would you confirm that your organisation fully respects and is in full compliance with the law of the land at present?
Thank you. Senator Healy-Ames, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairman and panel. Thank you very much for your forthrightness and helpfulness with your information. Professor McAuliffe, in reference to the cases that you refer abroad to the UK that you mentioned, and which appear that you have to do this, I'm taking that you're saying this as a result of the lack of legal clarity in the Republic of Ireland. Can you please give us some more specifics about these cases? And what are the circumstances surrounding them? Because I think this could be really helpful in helping us frame the legislation. I feel with that information that you're alluding to, you could be helping us to narrow down and define the problem that we have here that we need to address. So that would be really helpful. My second question to you, and indeed to all of the panel, again in helping us frame legislation, would you propose that time, support and intervention would be useful to a pregnant woman who believes she's at risk of suicide before a termination is provided? Would you say that that would be helpful? And I'm aware that a lot of time will be spent in running around to get the various sign-offs before a termination, but also let's think of the mother that is feeling suicidal and believes she's suicidal, and bearing in mind all of the psychiatric evidence that the way to treat suicide is not by abortion. What type, again, given the job we have to do in framing the legislation, can you talk about the time and support and intervention that you believe would be helpful?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And finally, Deputy Michael Creed.
Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach, and I'd like to thank the witnesses for their evidence. I have just a couple of brief questions. In the context of the Institute's support now for legislation and clarity, could I ask if in effect what you're talking about is transposing the current Medical Council guidelines, giving them statutory format effectively? And if that is so, maybe you would comment on those guidelines currently as they relate to suicide as a grounds for termination. Now, you also, I'd like also, just out of curiosity, to know how long it has been the view of and the policy of the Institute that we require legal clarity and a legal framework here. Because as a public representative of some years, I don't recall previously, having been lobbied by the Institute to provide, legislation in this area. And is this just a position that the Institute has adopted now on foot of the ABC and X case report? Could I ask in respect of the reference which you made about treatment abroad, are we talking about effectively termination, or are we talking about the range of obstetric and gynecological conditions, including human-assisted reproduction, where we don't have a legal framework here, and treatment abroad in those circumstances as well. Are you talking about exclusively, in the context of this debate, referral for treatment abroad for termination? Maybe you could elaborate more in respect of your earlier conclusions in that respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy. Mr. Bean, if you want to start.
Okay. I'm conscious that a number of these questions are...
Who's left from this session now? Sorry, just the members know.
Okay. I'm conscious that a number of these questions are not directly relevant to the expert group report, but I'll answer them in the best way I can. Issues around kind of circumstances in which protection would be given to the unborn. In part of our submission, we included information on what happens in other European countries, and what happens in other countries is there is some protection to the unborn afforded at particular circumstances, at particular gestations. The difficulty that we've had in Ireland is that, and I think the expert group deals with this very well, is that in our constitution, the referendum in 1983, what we tried to do is we tried to equate the life of the unborn with the life of the woman, and what that's in effect done is it has given the unborn more rights than a woman in practice. So what we have is we have women travelling to another jurisdiction for abortion services. In relation to women not getting the best care and the remarks in our opening submission, I think that we wouldn't be here without the ABC case. We wouldn't be here if that woman could have got a determination from her doctors. So I think that's a very, very clear place. You wouldn't be here today if, see, in the ABC case had got a determination and if the law was in place. And indeed, Dr. McAuliffe has already mentioned about cases where women have had to be sent abroad to the UK. And I suppose from our perspective, the type of question we were wondering about what would happen in those cases if, for a particular reason, the woman couldn't travel, if she couldn't afford to travel or she didn't have the documentation. With regard to the Irish Family Planning Association itself, we have always respected the laws of the state. It doesn't stop us. Advocating for our clients and bringing it to the attention of decision makers and lawmakers like yourselves, circumstances where the law is actually a barrier to healthcare. I hope they answer all the questions. If there are, I'm happy to.
Professor McAuliffe. Sorry, very brief.
Is his organisation, can he confirm that his organisation is fully compliant with current Irish law?
Sorry.
Yes, of course it is.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Professor McAuliffe.
Okay, just to answer Senator Walsh, as obstetricians we have an equal duty of care to mothers and their babies, and that of course will always continue. It is our while we would bow to the superior knowledge of our law colleagues, it is our preference to have the 1861 Act repealed. In terms of Senator Healy-Ames' issues, at the moment there's no legal certainty for us taking decisions where there's a substantial risk to the life of the mother. We've no legal framework for taking those decisions, and that leads to some uncertainty. And just to reiterate, these cases are rare cases. Okay, there are not many cases. They're rare cases, and I am aware of a small number of these cases where there is legal uncertainty. And we've referred to the UK for second opinion. The woman has had a termination in the UK and has come back for continuation of treatment in Ireland. And I feel that if we have legal certainty in these very rare cases where there's a substantial risk to the life of the mother, we're talking about small numbers of cases, women with severe medical disorders, if we have a legal framework for that, then we can look after all women where there's substantial risk. And how would we feel that this could be accommodated in the legislation if senior doctors feel there's substantial risk to the threat of the life of the mother, which can only be averted by termination of pregnancy or early preterm delivery of the baby? I feel that that will cover those cases that we come across and we feel a little bit uncertain about. Addressing the issue of whether legislation or regulation is required, what we are seeking is legal framework and certainty, and we would defer to our legal colleagues as to how this is best framed. But at the moment we feel there is legal uncertainty and we look for legal certainty, and the nuts and bolts of that we would refer to our legal experts. In response to the query about the expert group, this is the second time I've been asked this question. The answer remains the same. We convened a group of Institute people on the 4th of December. We came up with our report. This was circulated to the members of the executive of the Institute. We had a meeting of the executive of the Institute on the 14th of December, and it was passed unanimously. It is the role of the executive to, each executive is chosen because they represent an area within Ireland and they amalgamate the views of their members. Have we been lobbying for this previously? No, our remit was to come up with a response to the expert group, which is what you have heard today.
Good. Thank you. Dr. do you want to make any comment? No? Okay. Professor Green?
Just in response to the question about I can't remember who asked the question, but the issue about somebody who has a suicidal ideation and caring for them in advance of carrying out a termination. Absolutely. Our first point of care for women is, irrespective of suicide or medical conditions, whatever, is that we look after the woman to the best we can. And if termination is part of the treatment of that, then it becomes the question.
Okay. Very briefly, because it's
very briefly, and just directly to the obstetricians, as I understand it, say in a case of suicide intent, a person beyond a certain gestational period, that patient will be treated, and efforts made, obviously, to induce the baby and save the baby's life. Are we saying that prior to that issue, that in fact the baby's life will be forfeited and that the treatment wouldn't take place?
Thank you.
No, what I'm trying to get at is, would the treatment that you would do post-viability be applied to the earlier stage in order to try and bring the woman through the situation where, I think, as you said yourself, one day a person feels suicidal, the next day they may not.
Thank you.
To get to the stage where gestation would allow, if you like, the baby to be induced safely.
Senator, and just before I bring in Professor McAuliffe, I want to acknowledge in the gallery the presence of former Senator Mary Henry to the House. Just want to welcome her to speaking today. Dr. McAuliffe. And I didn't see her actually, sorry, okay. Professor McAuliffe.
So just to reiterate, we're talking about a small number of rare cases where there's substantial risk to the life of the mother. If we feel that this risk can only be averted by delivery of the baby, whether that be before viability or afterwards, then that will be part of the care package. These decisions are made in conjunction with the mother, with her family, with a number of healthcare professionals. And of course, we always include the life of the baby. If, for instance, we feel that we can prolong the pregnancy, well, then absolutely we would. But if we feel that we're looking at a situation where her life is imminently in danger, and of course, if the mother dies, the baby dies. So if we can preserve the life of the mother, that is the best chance for the baby to continue. So of course we make these decisions, they're complex decisions, they're done in a team approach, they're very much done with the family, and once the baby has reached any chance of survival, we will always offer that baby, if appropriate, support.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so with that I want to thank Mr. Niall Behan, Dr. Katrina Henchen, from the Institute of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists, Professor Harrison, Dr. Maeve Vereen, and Professor McAuliffe for being here this afternoon, and Dr. Richard Green as well from Maternal Death Inquiry Ireland. Can I thank the members for your forbearance, and members of the Oireachtas and non-committee members for being here. Professor Harrison, very briefly.
I just want to say this has been a little bit of a disparate session compared to the others earlier in the day, but thank you very much for inviting us and to the meeting, and to say that as the specialty which will be most intimately connected with administering any legislation or regulations that must, in our view, come into being, that as the corporate entity representing Obstetrics and Gynae in Ireland, we, the Institute, hope to be invited to be actively engaged and provide input and support to the Department of Health on this issue.
Very much indeed. Okay, we stand adjourned until 9:30 tomorrow morning. Thank you.